Hey, it's Manny Goldman, founder of The Sacred Plant. I'm coming out of hiding. I'm coming out of behind the scenes to actually bring you a very special interview with a friend of mine, Nathan Crane. Hey, Nathan.
Hey Manny, how you doing, man? It's good to see
Great.
you. Thanks for having me here,
Likewise.
brother.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure to have you here, man. We go back now, gosh, 6 years. We met in my first cancer project. We'll talk about that a little later. But instead of me reading your bio, because it's long, right? You've done a lot, you've accomplished a lot. But one thing I know is that every master was once a disaster, right? So tell me, before you were helping people, before you were changing lives, saving lives, what happened? Where were you at when you were trying to figure life out? And how'd you get into the health space?
Yeah, for sure. No, I was definitely a disaster. That's a good way to put it. I started really young, right? 9 years old, I was already experimenting with cigarettes. I was drinking alcohol by 12 years old. By 15, I was homeless, involved with drugs and gangs and alcoholism. I started really, really young and barely made it to 18 years old. So by that point, I was already really sick. I was, eating really toxic food, just a lot of problems at home. Parents divorced early. There's a lot of fighting, a lot of dysfunction there. Didn't get along in school, was in and out of jail, house arrest, all these things as a kid. I was just a lost, troubled youth, like so many millions that we have today. And along that path, was didn't know anything about health, didn't know anything about living a good quality life, didn't know anything about taking care of my body, my mind, my diet, my nutrition. And so really, nobody thought I was going to make it past 18 years old. That's to be brutally honest. And so yeah, I was definitely a disaster, and was totally polluting my body, almost dead. And I actually was able to move in with a really good friend of mine, and live with his family, with his parents for a while. They took me in, and they were really beautiful people, really spiritual people, eating super healthy. They were vegetarian. They were, eating, they were shopping at the co-op and eating organic and local, and, meditating and teaching me about classical music and all these things. So I'm in this environment, 16, 17, 18 years old. And I just loved it. I just absorbed it. I go out at night and party like crazy and get in trouble and all that. And then, come to my refuge there during the day, and sit and just talk spirituality and classical music and all these things. And I loved it. It just sparked something inside of me that knew there was something deeper, more meaningful in this life. And so, the short of it is, about 18 years old, I had this epiphany. I had this vision actually of myself in the future, which was really crazy. It was one of the rare times I was sober at that time. So it was like a real vision from spirit, from God, from the universe, whatever we want to believe. But it was a very clear vision of myself in the future, standing on a stage, speaking to thousands of people. And I looked healthy in that vision, and I was helping people with something. I didn't know what, but I was just like, I saw a potential of myself in the future that I had never seen before. And that kind of sparked this whole thing. My friend at the time, who was their son, Gabe, he's like, "Hey, I'm moving to California. I got to get out of here. We're going to die. We're going to end up in prison." I was like, "All right, man, I'm going with you." So we loaded up. I had a 1988 red and white Cadillac Coupe de Ville. we threw our suitcases in there, a couple duffel bags, really. No money, drove to California, ran out of gas. And honestly, in Oceanside, California, at 18 years old, that's where I just totally started my life over.
Wow. So you homeless? And I know I saw something in your bio about being homeless. Is that in California?
So I was homeless at 15. I was, couch surfing, living out of my car, was living on people's sofas, things like that. And then homeless again at 18. And then homeless again at like 21 or 22. There was another time. So 3 points in my life, I literally was homeless. I was either living out of my car, I was sleeping on park benches, or I was staying on people's couches. I didn't have a place to call home. And each time, though, it was like, the third time, let's put it that way, was actually a really spiritual experience for me. And it was teaching me how to be happy with nothing. So I was already a few years into meditating. I was already a few years into working out and cleansing my body and discovering, like, okay, I know what it's like to be unhealthy, to be sick, to be unhappy, to be stressed, to be angry at life, to have resentment, to hate the people I'm supposed to love, and all these things. I knew what that was like, but I didn't quite yet know what forgiveness was like, and what love was like, and what, happiness and vitality and health was like. And so I said, I got really good at being really bad over here. Let's see if I can get good at being good. So I made that my mission, to not only discover for myself what a good quality, healthy, happy life is like, but then share that with others along the way. So, that third time I was homeless, I actually was living with an ex-girlfriend at the time, and I was sleeping on a mattress in her living room in Oceanside, California. And she had this old cat, and this cat felt he was a male, right? So he felt competition with me. So he'd come in when I was out, and he'd come in and pee all over my bed. So I'd go back, and I'm sitting here and I'm sleeping on an ex-girlfriend's living room. She's got another boyfriend at the time, mind you, and there was nothing, we weren't trying to get back together. They were just helping me out. And I've got no money. I've got no money to put gas in my car. I'm, trying to figure out life, figure things out. And I've got this cat that's peeing on my bed. So I'm sleeping in this cat pee on this bed in my ex-girlfriend's living room in Oceanside, California, if you can imagine. And yet I was actually discovering how to be really happy in that situation. I was discovering how to, discover myself. I was meditating literally at some points hours and hours a day. I was just, I didn't know what I was going to do for food, and it didn't matter. I remember I was reading the Bhagavad Gita at that time. And I remember I'd wake up, and this is relevant for anyone with cancer, any chronic disease, truly, because what I discovered is something I've found over the years that a lot of people I've interviewed who've reversed cancer, commonalities, right? And so I woke up that one morning, and I remember seeing my thoughts for the first time, and they were like so negative. And I'm like, what is all these negative thoughts? Where's it even coming from? And it was like I stepped outside my body and witnessed my thoughts for one of the first times. And from that moment forward, I started a practice to which I still have to this day, which is now automatic, where I wake up and I think of the things I'm grateful for. I think of now my family. I think of my health. I think of all the people I get to serve and support and help along the way. This is just as my negative thoughts were once automatic. And we know through epigenetics and the science of the biology of belief that our thoughts literally can cause disease or help our bodies reverse disease. Those negative thoughts compounding over years and decades can literally contribute to disease proliferation or to your body's ability to heal itself. I changed those negative thoughts for positive thoughts, for thoughts of gratitude. And it's like that point forward, my life started to improve drastically.
Powerful, powerful. Tell me how that transitioned into cancer, right? So I believe that you were talking about health and natural health, but why cancer? Cancer is such a massive topic. What's your personal relationship as it ties into cancer?
Yeah, so I was really like 7 years into that journey, right? That kind of personal health and healing journey, discovery journey, spiritual journey. I was studying with masters, with Buddhist masters, with Zen masters, with spiritual masters, like 24/7, and meditating and detoxing. So I'm 7 years in this. I'm teaching. I'm traveling around the country. I'm writing books. People are asking me to to speak at their events. And so, I'm this young guy in I don't know, mid-20s by that point, thinking that I know a lot about health and happiness and spirituality, and had a new sense of kind of ego building up at that time, if you will. And then my grandpa was diagnosed with cancer. And I remember going to visit him in Arizona. And when we went into house, it was like everything I thought I knew about health was thrown out the window. I literally went back to kindergarten about health. I felt helpless. I felt hopeless. I felt powerless. It was like I knew that there had to be solutions for him. He was going through traditional chemotherapy and radiation, and for him, it was killing him. It was the moment he started therapy and then continued with it, he got worse and worse and worse and worse until he passed away. And so when I saw him, it was, I think, within about a year of his therapy, and he was just hair falling out and so much pain, so sick, couldn't even go to the bathroom. And I remember sitting there just thinking, I know there's solutions for him. I know there's things he can be doing to help his immune system, even while he's doing this traditional therapy, but I was like most people. I was uneducated about cancer. I hadn't had any real knowledge or experience with cancer up to that point, even though I was really immersed in health. And I just felt like, God, there's something I got to be able to say and do that can help him. And I left there just feeling like powerless, you know? And so when I got back home, and then shortly after that, he passed away. And this was 2013. And literally within a few months after that, it was like, okay, I'm never going to feel that way again. And if I get cancer, my family gets cancer, anybody I know gets cancer, it's like, I want to know what we can do. I want to know our options, our solutions. I want to know what causes it. I want to know what we can do to reverse it. I want to know everything I can. So, I'm never in that position again, and I can help anybody who needs that help. So I literally produced one of the very first online summits about cancer that year, went on to producing conferences, interviewing hundreds of experts, filmed and directed a 5-year project for a documentary on cancer, did a magazine, and just for the last 8 years now, so since 2013, I've just been totally immersed and obsessed with learning everything I can about cancer and helping others to, one, overcome that fear, but two, be more educated, more empowered, so that we all can make better decisions for our health.
I thank you for sharing that story. I can tell that it's hard for you to have that loss. So I'm sorry for your loss. Even though it's been 8 years, it probably feels like yesterday, right? All the things you wish you could have, now that you know so much, what you could have done then, right? I asked on any level, like, to think about that. When he passed, he gave you a new purpose, right? And that purpose has helped save thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people with his inspiration, right? Through his life, through his sickness. So I just pass that on from me to you, from the listeners. Like, hey, whatever's going on, right, has a purpose bigger than us, right, and has an impact that goes beyond. So I thank your grandfather. I haven't met him, unfortunately, but I would say that I thank him for this, because we wouldn't be here right now, right? You might be on a totally different path, and the cancer industry needs you for a lot of reasons, which we're going to get into today, which is so important. So you mentioned about the chemo piece and the radiation killing him, but you also, in your message, you're very much about the integrative approach, right? So tell me about, it seems like cancer seems so much more complicated because there's different types of cancers, different people might respond differently to different treatments. So, there's people in the industry that are really hardcore only holistic. There's people who are hardcore only traditional. Where do you stand after interviewing hundreds of people, including patients?
Yeah, so I saw this years ago, and that's one of the reasons that I started a documentary about 6 years ago, and since then it's won 20 awards, and it's been really well received, based on this really leading edge field of medicine called integrative medicine, right? And integrative medicine is where doctors from all sides, from ancient Eastern to modern conventionals and everything in between, are coming together to say, look, let's use the best of what's working. So integrative medicine is really at the cutting edge right now, and I think is helping a lot of people. But there are some shortfalls or some shortcomings we should be aware of, but also a lot of hope there. Some of the shortcomings are, some conventional hospitals are opening an integrative center because they see the need for it, but without yet a true desire to give integrative therapy. And one example is, their main treatment protocol is chemotherapy, radiation, surgery. But for people who have this kind of desire for natural medicine, holistic medicine, integrative medicine, they feel more comfortable there because they offer maybe a couple of integrative therapies. And in my opinion, like, that's a great start, but it's definitely has some holes. Where then you look on this other side, where you do have some truly integrative centers today, and they are implementing the best of all worlds. I mean, they have spiritual work, mental, emotional work. They do nutritional therapy. They do, high dose vitamin C and curcumin. They're doing IV therapies. They're doing homeopathy. They're doing Ayurvedic medicine. They're doing all kinds of medicine from India to China to Western conventional. They're doing low dose IPT, which is insulin potentiated therapy, which is a low dose chemo, basically, which is a bit more targeted. They're doing, and when it's necessary, they're not afraid to tell their patient, look, I think you should get surgery. I think you should do some chemotherapy. I think you should do some radiation because the outcome has shown statistically that with your type of cancer, if you do some of these therapies and maybe some lighter versions of them, your chances of overcoming this are going to be drastically higher, especially when we're addressing the underlying causes, getting rid of the molds and toxins in your life, in your diet, in your home, in your body, getting rid of the parasites, changing your diet, adding in supplementation, helping enhance your immune system. So, that's what's really exciting is more and more of these integrative centers that are opening up that are truly implementing integrative medicine from all fields. And I really feel like that's the future. That's the future of where we're headed. In the future, we're not there yet, but certainly, where I think we need to understand as human beings, as a society, is this underlying principle. We may be all for natural, we may be all for holistic, or we may be all for conventional. But at the end of the day, if something is working and it's going to increase your chances drastically of not only surviving cancer, but improving your quality of life and living a longer, healthier, happier life, wouldn't you want the ability to have that option? If as long as you have the option and you're educated and you know what options you have and the potential outcome, you're going to be so much more empowered to choose that approach for yourself than otherwise. And Manny, I mean, coming back to you even, you had an experience yourself with cancer, right? And you had an experience of this integrative approach. I'd love to hear more about your story about that.
All right. Well, the cat's out of the bag, right? So I wasn't hiding it by any means. I just didn't, have the chance to share it. So I've been in the cancer space, as I mentioned, I think for 6 years behind the scenes, right? Help spread the word in a massive way. And then I actually had and get a cancer diagnosis myself. So I actually had a liposarcoma, a fatty tissue tumor growing on my leg. And I would put it off because I came through the world of holistic only and traditional's bad. So I didn't use the great things about traditional. They have the diagnosis, they have the testing, they have all these different available things for me, and I was kind of avoiding it. So I was doing a lot of natural things, but it wasn't working. And truthfully, I wasn't even going to holistic people either. I was just kind of ignoring it, if we're being really blunt and honest, right? So make a long story short, I ended up going to a traditional center. I felt very uncomfortable in that environment. I almost felt like a cow on the assembly line. I just didn't feel comfortable personally. So I went to a surgeon, had it removed. They did a biopsy, and I got that phone call that says, "Hey, there's cancer cells in this fatty tissue. On top of that, the margins aren't clear, right? So it actually left over cancer cells in my leg." So then it starts going. The family members start getting involved, and my wife gets involved, and there's a lot of fear around it. There's even some shame sometimes, especially for me who lived a healthy lifestyle in the cancer space. How am I going to explain this and all these other different things? Am I going to live? Am I going to die? I have young children. There's just so much that goes through that experience. I did my research. I spoke to an integrative doctor who's actually, that Nathan knows it's in his series, and she guided me through the process. Hey, go get your second surgery because it's a must, right? It works well for this type of cancer. But also, I want you to do infrared saunas. I want you to do yogas. I want you to do this cleansing. I ended up getting my home tested for mold, and there was mold in our master bathroom. So we actually, gutted out the bathroom and redid it and got the mold out and had the house, cleaned out in a certain way. And so we were going through that process. It was a very integrative approach. I used the surgery model, right? So I had 2 surgeries about 30 days apart. Went through that experience, and then I went through the holistic healing to prepare for the surgeries, but also after the surgery. So it's kind of ironic that we're talking about integrative medicine because I came from the world of, first I started my life off with traditional only, then I went into holistic only. And now I'm blending the both, right? Because it shouldn't be either or. It should absolutely be both. I know a story of a public figure who was actually speaking on purely holistic only. And then she gets cancer and she follows her own protocol. It's her thought process, her belief system. And she ended up getting chemo towards the tail end. Not only was it too late, in my opinion, her whole mindset, her whole focus on, chemo is bad. And if you know anything about the mind-body connection, you know that when you receive the chemo, when your subconscious mind believes it's bad, it's going to actually make it even worse, right? So if I can encourage anybody listening to say, be willing to open your mind and expand to any option that's effective for your specific cancer, right? We want to get away from this right-wrong mentality and say what's best for me, what's working best for my case, rather than it has to be only traditional, only holistic. So that's your big message. Would you say that's true, Nathan?
That's 100% true. I mean, it's incredible that you're, a perfect example of somebody who's gone through that. And now, what's your margin showing? I mean, is the cancer gone? What's
Yeah,
your
I
latest?
didn't, I didn't get to answer that. But I didn't include that in my story, so I'm sorry. So the second time around, they cleared the margins. I did a PET scan. There was no spread of cancer. So right now I'm cancer free. But they also said these things are notorious for coming back. So it's important for me to keep an environment, both my physical environment as well as what I put in my body and my stress levels and all that. Keep an environment that actually allows me to continue being cancer free because it can come back,
So
right?
what are the biggest changes now that you're doing daily and weekly that you weren't doing before?
What I found, did we switch the interview?
I'm interested to know more for myself.
I appreciate that. So a big thing for me also was my stress levels, right? So a big piece is that you talk about meditation, right? And really just calming down my nervous system because I was kind of stuck in this fight or flight, from New York, go, 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 and really working to slow down my nervous system. That was a big piece. So how do we do that? We do, yoga was a big piece. So going to yoga was kind of fun. I went to a gentle yoga class and I walked in and I'm like, you're in the gentle yoga class, right? I'm like, yeah, why? I'm like, I don't look gentle to you? She's like, no. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, good feedback. Kind of, you got to walk into a room with a little more, softness, right? So I have an infrared sauna in my office that I have a home unit that I do, a kind of small contained unit that I do. I got my genes tested and I found out that I actually don't process toxins well. So it's MTHFR and there's other genes that actually tell me that I'm not processing toxins. So I was, early on in my life, my dad was in the car business. So I was in oil, I was involved with oil and gas and grease and all this other stuff. And my body didn't, clear the toxins, mold. I have an intolerance to mold and mercury was in my mouth when I was young and I had those removed. So I'm working on, supplementation and other things to cleanse out the toxins in my body. We kind of just think that, all this environmental and food toxins that we take in and all these other chemicals that we take in, we have to be able to eliminate those one way or the other. Can't avoid them completely. You can reduce them, but you can't avoid them. And if your body can't, like myself, can't eliminate them effectively, you're going to have to assist the body in elimination. Another way that I help eliminate toxins is through intermittent fasting. So I actually limit the amount of hours that I eat, so my body has more time to eliminate the toxins. I sometimes do extended, cleanses as well, but really the intermittent fasting is on a daily basis. I'm eating 6 to 8 hours a day, right? Pretty much the same amount of food, so I don't feel hungry, but I actually just eat those periods. I actually do the same thing for my dog. So I have about a 50-pound dog, and he eats 6 to 8 hours a day with me, and it's actually healthier for the dog. I see him, having more energy. I see him, it's gonna sound gross, but pooping more, right? He's just healthier. He's processing his toxins better and eliminating more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible to hear your story, Manny, and where you were and where you are now and just the changes in your own life. I mean, it's a great example of what so many of us deal with, right? Where we do dive deep down the natural health rabbit hole. And then all of a sudden we have this, and there's a lot of information out there. I'm sure some of you tuning in have seen it. That is just really, for lack of a better term, is bashing the medical conventional community and model. And in my opinion, sure, there's some truth there, but it's not the whole truth, right? They are limiting the truth because they're only sharing you the ugly side, and there are always two sides of every story. And they do tend to make all medical doctors, all conventional medicine seem like bad people. And the reality is most of them are not bad people. Most of them are good people trying to do good things, but maybe they have some limited information, right? And so my intention is to show people the entire story, the full truth, so that people can make a better decision. Like for yourself, you didn't even want to do anything and felt a little guilty and all that, but you realized, you needed some surgery, you needed some conventional treatment, but at the same time, without all the other things you're doing, the yoga, the meditation, the nutrition, the intermittent fasting, the sauna, without all that, the conventional treatment you might have gotten may not have been as effective, right? And so working together is really, I see the future of all healthcare moving forward. It's so important. I can't stress the importance of that. But I do want to say one more thing.
Sure.
I don't want to, uh, how do I want to put it? I think it's important to note there are conventional treatments that are not effective. And so I'm not here saying all conventional treatments are effective. I mean, the largest study that's ever been done on chemotherapy in the United States and Australia, they did this study. They looked at over 230,000 people using chemotherapy as a treatment for cancer, and they looked at 18 adult malignancies. And they determined in this study that across all cancers, if you grouped them all together, right, that chemotherapy had a 2.1 and 2.3% success rate, which means nearly a 98% failure rate, that people's lives were extended, the survivorship was extended beyond 5 years. So, that's grouping it all together. And some people look at that study and they say, oh, all chemotherapy is bad. But the reality is some of those cancers did really well. I mean, I think it was testicular cancer, if I remember, has like over 50% success rate. Some cancers did very well. Some cancers do really poorly. There are some cancers that have a 0% success rate with chemotherapy, right? So you can't group it all together and say all chemotherapy is bad. You also can't look at the 50% and say, oh, all chemotherapy is great, right? At the same time, there are leading edge, newer low dose targeted chemotherapy treatments, IPT, when in conjunction with something like, diet, nutrition, and meditation, and yoga, and sauna, and all these things, you can drastically improve your outcomes. And that's what it should always be about. One, educate yourself on the full truth, understand what these, don't be afraid to ask your oncologist and say, what success rate do you have with this treatment protocol that you're sharing with me? What are your success rates? Show me the statistics. I'd like to know more. And then get another opinion, and then get another opinion, and then get another opinion, and research and learn and educate yourself, because the more you know, the more empowered you will be to actually choose the path that's going to work best for you.
Yeah, I love the empowerment piece. I have this joke with my kids. I have 3 young children under 12, and it's like this idea of lion versus sheep. And I actually even have a lion ring on my thing to remind me, because sometimes we want to almost on some level be sheep because we want someone else to take responsibility, right? We've been trained in our culture to let the doctor knows better than me. They got to go, they'll make the choice for me. And the problem is if the doctor's misinformed, right? Or hands are tied by a system, right? Then they're going to guide you on a path that may not be best for you, not because they're bad people, but because they have either, I might even say they have an agenda. There's just a system that they're a part of, right? There's a system that's involved there. So I'm just going to always advocate for empowerment, right? It's not a one size fits all. It's not a pill for an ill, right? Is to be basically be able to get the empowered, become a lion, and not allow your family members, because I went through that, not allow your family members or the doctor to steer you towards a path that doesn't feel right for you. So you get to make the power in your health. It's your body, your health, right? You can get opinions, you can get strategies all day long, but please don't let anyone else but yourself make the decision, if you're able and willing to, of course. But I want to get into Nathan. You have a summit coming up, right? So it's called the Conquering Cancer Summit. I love the name. It says so much. Conquering Cancer Summit, and it's starting on May 18th. It's the registration started already on the 27th of April. Why this, right? Because I mean, you could be doing docuseries. You told me you did a documentary over 6 years. I mean, what's the benefit of a summit, and what's different about this one?
Yeah, good question. I think one of the biggest benefits of the summit is that we get the most leading edge information up to date of what's working now, right? And that's important. Yes, my documentary, it took 5 years, but I started over 6 years ago. As that's released around the world, it'll still be relevant in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but some things may not be as relevant, right? Today or tomorrow or next year. Now, there are foundations, there are principles. These are the things that we need to continue learning and educating ourselves. So one is, it's about getting the latest information. What's working, what's new, what cutting edge technologies are there, what's working in all fields of medicine. And there's always new things emerging. And so that's why, we can do a summit and within a few months interview 60 world leading experts and cancer conquerors, right? we're not calling them cancer survivors anymore. These are people who are conquering cancer using integrative therapies, and share this with the world so that it's up to date and you know you're getting information immediately that you can act upon. Number two is even someone like myself who has spent literally thousands of hours researching and interviewing, reading, looking at the literature, looking at hundreds of studies in PubMed, writing my own books, interviewing, the experts, filming my own master classes, right? Thousands of hours. I'm still learning, right? So this process is for me, as I do these interviews and I continue the research, it's like I'm still learning new things. And so anybody tuning in, whether you've watched documentaries on cancer, you've been to other summits on cancer, you've been to other docuseries on cancer, there is never a time we should stop educating ourselves, ever. I will consider myself a student of life for the rest of my life. If I ever stop learning, it's like life for me would probably be over, because there's always something new to learn. And so we need to keep educating ourselves. We could hear some, I'm sure we've all had this experience, right? Tell me, Manny, if you've ever had this experience. You hear something one day from somebody. 6 months later, you hear it again from somebody else. 3 months later, you hear it again. A year later, you hear it again. By that point, you're like, wow, that sounds, I think I should do that. You still don't do it. 6 months later, you hear it again in a different way. Still don't do it. 6 months later, you hear it again. Finally, you hear it from someone at just the right point when you're ready, and you go, intermittent fasting. I've been hearing about that for 8 years. I know people are using it, with great success with cancer and other chronic diseases. Maybe it's time for me. I'm gonna actually do intermittent fasting, right? And it may take you 8 years to get there, and hearing it a dozen times. Hopefully it doesn't take us that long to make those, changes in our own life, but often it does. And so we have to, one, not only keep hearing information again and again until it really sticks and resonates with us, but two, hearing it from credible sources, right? So I guess that's number three, is that part of my job of what I do and why I'm doing this summit is to bring, some of the most well-experienced, highly educated, highly, experts in their fields of all different fields of medicine, and bring their decades of knowledge and research and hands-on experience to people anywhere they are in the world, right? That's the beauty of a summit. You can attend for free, you can be at home, and you can learn from these world-leading experts what's working and what's not working. So, I'd say those are probably the top three reasons why this summit, why we're doing it now. It's more important now than ever. Obviously with this pandemic, this viral pandemic that's going on, it's super important to understand what are the correlations there? What is this correlation between this virus that is impacting people, and the people that it's mostly killing are people who have 2 or 3 or more comorbidities, and one of those is cancer, right? And so what are the correlations there? What can we do to defend against that? So we have interviews on that. We have interviews on, what are the differences? And there are big differences between viral infections and cancer. So what are those differences? What are the causes? The causes we need to be aware of, and the latest causes that sometimes people don't even know about or cover in depth, as well as the solutions. Obviously, we need solutions. And so, really focusing on the solutions that are going to be accessible and practical for anyone, anywhere in the world. Face it, cancer treatment is so expensive today, whether you go integrative or you go conventional. And so many people can't afford it. So, that's one of the things that we wanted to focus on, as well as what are the free things that you can do, the low cost, the affordable, effective things, evidence-based things that you can do if your intentions are trying to prevent cancer or even reverse cancer.
Yeah, that's well said. I love the Summit docuseries model because it gives access to such incredible information for free, and the generous and kind people who actually support the mission and buy the packages, they make it available for everybody else. It's one of the most brilliant models, and I came to the docuseries model. Now I'm actually even more fond of the Summit model because, like you said, it's more timely. It took me over a year or a year and a half to produce the Sacred Planet docuseries, and now in a Summit you can do it in like 90 days, right? So it's like, especially in this COVID world, it's like what's happening right now, during COVID, post-COVID, pre-COVID to actually prevent and treat cancer. So I love it. But what I want to do is I want to dive deep. I want to actually like take the first 3 episodes and say, hey, give me some snippets from each, right? Because some people might be impatient like me, and I'm working on it. I'm working on calming my nervous system, but I want to give a lot of value on this interview. So if we can just go through the first 3 episodes. So thank you for granting me access to what the episodes are about. So episode 1 is the unfortunate divide in cancer treatment and how it may be harming you and your loved ones. That's powerful. I want to hear a little bit about that. I want to hear about the current common causes of cancer and how to avoid or stop feeding it, because the best way to treat cancer is not to get it at all, and that's possible. We can actually understand the current common causes. It's kind of fun, current common causes, and also how to avoid them. And then also the best traditional cancer treatments working right now and why. Actually, I think I had that one wrong. It's more about the integrative treatments. So it's kind of part 1 and part 2. So let's go start from the top. We talked quite a bit about the unfortunate divide and how it might be harming you. Is there anything else you want to say there, either from from one of the interviews that you'll be sharing in episode 1?
Yeah, I mean, that's, we did touch on a little bit, but in this episode, we go into depth, right? We go into depth in the history, we go into depth in, like with Dr. Kevin Connors, for example, like when did this divide really start? Why did it start? And what can we do about it, right? And so it's not just about shining the light, even though that's important, on the problem. It's also about focusing on the solutions, right? So I'm super solution oriented. Like, 1, I want to know what it is. 2, I always want to know why. Why is this happening? Why does this work? Why does this not work? So I'm always about the why, right? And then 3 is like, okay, what can we do about it? So as long as those 3 things are always covered, and we really cover that in the entire series in depth, but episode 1 kind of lays that framework, that groundwork for more in-depth information about the what, the why, and then what we can do about it. I'd say, Elaine Gibson, who is a dear friend of mine, and she's in that episode. She is a true conqueror. She's a true cancer conqueror, right? Has overcome cancer twice. And so her story in that episode is extraordinary. I don't have to get into it so much right now, but it's truly based in an integrative approach. And, 75 years old, I should say 75 years young, a grandmother, was told that she was not going to see her grandchildren grow up. I mean, what a horrible thing to tell somebody, but she took that and said, no, I'm going to do everything I can to, prolong my life and hopefully overcome this. And she did. Stage 4 cancer, she overcame it. And you get to hear her story, exactly what she did, how she did it, the integrative approach that she did. It's beautiful. That's episode 1.
Can I extract something? So people are anticipating what's going to come, right? Can you just give us a little bit, just something that she did differently than other people have done, that they just take, if they want to implement it today? What's one thing that they can take from that episode?
Well, here's the one thing that she told me that, so she was diagnosed once before, years before, and she changed her diet, nutrition, and did all these different things. And they said the cancer was gone, right? Well, years later, I don't remember at the moment, 8 years later, something like that, the cancer came back with a vengeance, right? And then it was stage 4. So she went to town. She went to town training and did everything, even at a higher level, more integrative therapies, more technologies. One of the things that she attributes to her success of overcoming cancer the second time is getting her mindset right. Exactly what you've been talking about with yourself, right? And so she started meditating. She started meditating an hour every morning and an hour every night. And she's doing all kinds of different meditations and different types and guided meditations. And, that was a huge piece of it. And as we know, calming the nervous system down, activating the parasympathetic nervous system so the immune system can turn on and heal itself. That's one of the things that she really attributes the success to her healing, was taking the mental, emotional healing aspect seriously and putting a huge focus on that, which she hadn't done previously.
That's a huge nugget. Thank you. And I want to encourage everyone to be kind to yourself. And I bring that up is because there's this idea of like perfection, right? I want to be like this perfect, monk and be able to meditate, for an hour or two. But just be kind. Even if you meditate for a minute, 2 minutes, right? Even if it's a couple days a week, it's progress over perfection. And it's easy for me to say because I beat myself up, as we all do. But I just want to encourage everyone to be kind, because if you're like, you have an intention to meditate and you don't, and you beat yourself up, you're actually creating a double negative, right? You're actually hurting yourself twice as much, right? So Where that came from, I don't know, but I felt inspired to share. Please be as kind to yourself as possible, because even if you just did that, even if you decided, hey, I'm not going to beat myself up, I'm not going to judge myself, I'm not going to be, hurt myself over not meeting my expectations, that alone is, I think, is a form of meditation. So
It's huge.
it's huge, right? All right, so let's talk about the current common causes of cancer, how to avoid it, and stop feeding it. So talk a little bit about the stop feeding it piece.
Yeah, the stop feeding it piece is huge. Obviously, understanding what is causing cancer so we can eliminate those causes.
Right.
There are common causes. There are known causes. There are scientifically known causes and understood causes. The problem is you can ask a lot of people today, what causes cancer? And they say, we don't know. Sometimes it's the sun. Sometimes it might be toxins. No, we do know the causes, actually. It's very clear when you look at the literature, not only anecdotal research. When you look at hard PubMed research, we know what causes cancer. Carcinogens cause cancer, right? But it goes beyond that too. So like Dr. Thomas Lodi, dear friend and colleague of mine, who is a holistic medical doctor. So he's kept his MD and he's been trained in holistic MD, and he's worked with hundreds and hundreds of patients over the years. One, he helps us understand what cancer actually is, which is so important to understand. Right. But then two, starts going into some of the most common causes as well as some of the unknown causes. Dr. Buttar, like, he is amazing when helping to identify and understand some of the core things that are feeding cancer as well. Right. So it's not just toxins. It's not just what we're putting on our skin. It's not just what we're putting in our mouth. It's also what we're putting in our mind and our emotions and our beliefs. So we talk a lot about that in that episode as well. We go deeper into, what does that actually mean? How does that affect our biology? What can we do about it? So it goes beyond just mindset and belief, but into what he calls the number one proven cause of cancer that we all need to understand. And so it's this one thing that actually was pretty shocking to me. When he said it, was like, oh yeah, of course, that's it. But it's the one thing that determines everything. And so once you understand this one thing, everything else starts to come into place. And then we have a great, healing story with Dr. Dr. Veronique Desanier, who also overcame cancer twice. And I don't want to share too much there because people need to hear the story from her saying it, right? Because it's so powerful what she shares. But yeah, so getting a deeper look and dive into actually what's causing cancer, and then so we can avoid those causes.
I know you want people to watch the interview, the episode. They have to, right? Because we're just scratching the surface. This is the tip of the iceberg. Cancer is so important from a prevention and treatment piece. You want to be prepared if someone, it's not even a matter of if, when someone gets it, it's so sad to say that, right? I just lost a family friend 2 months ago, dear family friend, my mother's best friends. She passed away, stage 4 pancreatic cancer at the age of 57. Heartbreaking. So you can't scratch the surface on this topic. You have to go deep. But being the advocates of the people listening here in my community, I got to ask you what that number one thing is. We can't leave that cliffhanger open. So what is that one thing for with Dr. Buttar, who I love, is a dear friend of mine. What is that one thing?
I love it. I'm glad you're digging deep. I mean, I love to share. It's like I could talk for hours and hours on this and just give it all away. I love it.
Then the one model is giving it all away.
Exactly. The one thing, and obviously you can spend, an entire hour on that one thing, but the one thing is environment. The one thing is environment, and it's not just external environment, it's internal environment. And it's not just physiological internal environment, it is mental, emotional environment. So that one thing, when you address the environment, all aspects of our environments, our external environment, our home environment, our relational environment, our internal environment, our organs, what's going in our bodies, as well as the environment that is in our minds, that's in our emotions. Because we know through Bruce Lipton, a good friend and colleague of mine, through the study of epigenetics and so many great researchers out there, literally our thoughts can cause cancer or help our bodies reverse cancer. We know that. It is very clear now that the research, the science is so profound that, our own belief system dictates our gene expression. And so that environment is such an important piece to understand, the environment of the mind, the environment of our thoughts, and how to really get our thinking aligned with thoughts of healing. And that is, connecting to deeper thoughts of compassion, of gratitude. I told you I have a gratitude practice every single morning. I have that gratitude practice multiple times throughout the day. I have a gratitude practice before I go to bed, right? It's just one practice. It only takes a couple minutes at a time, multiple times a day, but it connects you to the thoughts, the healing feelings and thoughts that literally activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Compassion, feeling for others, generosity. When you give and help somebody else in need, that generosity activates hormones that release in your body that activate healing in your body. These things are, we've known these things for thousands of years from our ancient ancestors, right? Especially from the East, for example, and from China and from India. We're talking Qigong masters and Buddhists and Zen masters and masters from India and so forth. That getting the mind right helps the body to heal. And getting the mind right, meaning that we practice more of these emotions of gratitude, of love, of compassion, of kindness, of peace, right? The more we do that, the more our bodies are going to activate the healing response. So that's one environment. The internal environment, obviously the diet, nutrition, which foods are literally causing cancer, which foods help our bodies to heal from cancer. And then our external environment, like you said, you found mold in your house. We know that mold, when you have a mold infection in your body or a parasitic infection in your body or a fungal infection in your body, and that's not taken care of, meaning your body is fighting against it, your immune system is constantly battling against it, right? And this chronic infection is lasting months or years and years. It's creating chronic inflammation. It's creating cell DNA damage, which leads to cancer, right? So that chronic inflammation we know causes cancer. So getting all of those things in our environment addressed and healed. So again, it was like, yeah, when you said environment is the number one thing, and then we go into depth of all the different types of environment, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, when you say environment, the first thing that came to mind was like the friends you hang out with, the people you speak to the most, right? The news that you watch, the TV shows that you watch, the movies that you watch, right? Are they adding value? I remember watching The Secret. Many of us have watched it. Over 1 billion people have watched it since 2006 when it came out. It was like the idea of they laughed their way by watching funny movies, and they laughed their way to healing cancer.
Right. Yeah.
That was a really great story. Just a snippet about the mold for real quest. I didn't see mold on my wall, and all of a sudden say, "Hey, I got to go fix that." I actually decided to actually get a test done to actually test the air, which was kind of like a swab or a Swiffer around certain parts of my house, whether it be the fans, the moldings, and send it to a lab. And they came back and told me the strains of mold and the levels of mold in my house. And this house has been only built since 2016, so it's a fairly new house. But it can happen in a lot of various different ways. And a lot of people I know, when I bring up mold to my family members and friends, they like, it's like no big deal to them. It's like, yeah, whatever. I guess that's nothing, right? And it's a lot more than nothing, right? So a lot of times we don't take things seriously until we have to, right? So love to encourage people to if they willing and able to take things a little more seriously. Things like mold, mercury, and all these other different, even getting gas for your car, right? I'd consider the possibility of putting gloves on, right? Like don't expose the gasoline to your bare hands, my body can't, extract it. It's just something that might be want to pass on. So Nathan, I know episodes 3 and 4 talk about the integrative part 1 and part 2. I'll talk all about integrative strategies that work in the best. We talk so much about that today. So I'm just going to skip that for now. I want to keep this interview to under an hour, or keep our best. I want to skip to episode 8, which is kind of like our furry family members, right? So I'm a dog owner. My daughter, who's now 10, she was advocating for a dog for 5 years, right? So she wrote, love letters to the dog. She had a vision board. She had all these different things. We got this dog. Now it's a member of the family, right? I mean, and dog cancer is huge, right? So I introduced you to a dear friend of mine, Dr. Marlene Siegel, who's a veterinarian for 40 plus years. She became an integrative, veterinarian, and a couple other friends who would be talking on that episode. What can you share for pet owners? Because there's a lot of pet owners listening to this. What's one thing that you recall from those interviews that you think that you can pass on today?
Yeah, there's a lot that's shared. I mean, I have 2 dogs that are part of our family and a cat. And, my dogs are dealing with kind of an autoimmune issue right now. I took them to the vet and the vet wants to put them on steroids for the rest of their life. And I thought, okay, steroids to suppress the immune system. We know that's not really the best approach for long-term health. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do the steroids. I'm going to discover, what I don't know about animal health. I've been so focused on human health for 15 years. It's like I've neglected my own animals, and they're part of our family. So I feel so bad for them, to know that they've got this issue going on, which we know autoimmune disease increases your risk of cancer exponentially, right? Because they're both immune system related. So I was really excited to do these interviews, to learn from myself, my family, and then be able to share this with others. So there's a lot of really good nuggets of wisdom and practical things we can do. I'd say the number one thing, which I have discovered even beforehand, but got to dive deeper in with both Dr. Marlene Siegel, Dr. Gary Richter, Dr. Trina Hazza, right, which are all very similar. They started as conventional veterinarians, and then they, went down, functional medicine, holistic medicine, integrative medicine. So they implement the best of all worlds. Cannabis being used on dogs, actually. So the information about cannabis for dogs and cats was really fascinating. How we don't have to be afraid of our dogs getting high when they're getting THC and things like that, the right dosages. So we have to be very careful when we are giving cannabis. The cannabis is super safe for the animals, but you don't want to overdo it on the THC. They need the THC and the CBD just like humans do. They have the receptors. It helps with the inflammation, helps with, actually anti-cancer properties, all those things. So you need the THC with the CBD and the CBG and all the other properties there, but you don't want to overdo it on the THC. And so that's, that you really need to know the weight of your animal, how much THC is okay, but they really don't need much at all, and they can see pretty profound results. So the safety of cannabis in animals is actually quite extraordinary, and the results they're getting with using cannabis for reducing the pain, the chronic pain, helping reduce inflammation, helping the healing process. I thought that was really awesome to learn about and know that they're using cannabis successfully for animals dealing with cancer and all kinds of chronic health issues. And I'd say the second thing is the diet. We all get so focused on diet when it comes to cancer for people. I mean, I think that's probably the number one thing. I know for my own audience, it's true that the number one thing most people turn to is diet and supplementation when they're dealing with any chronic health issue. Now, diet is super important, right? For me, though, from my perception, my experience, it's only one piece of the whole integrative puzzle. We've got to get it right for ourselves, but it's a totally different diet for our animals. And that's something really important to understand. We are not dogs. We are not cats. We are not carnivores. They are carnivores. See, I used to believe that dogs were actually like a true omnivore, right? And I obviously didn't do enough research on that, because now I know that a dog is actually a carnivore, and a cat I've always known a cat is an obligate carnivore. They have to eat meat to get their nutrients, right? They can't get vitamin D from the sun and things like that. They have to get it from eating, they have to get it from eating meat. Cats are an obligate. Dogs, depends which vet you talk to, they are carnivore. Some of them lean a little bit closer to omnivore, but they all agree that dogs are actually carnivores. And what do carnivores eat? Well, carnivores eat raw meat. They kill their prey, they eat the whole thing. So my dogs, I never stopped them from hunting, right? So when we go out and I'm running, we're jogging, we're riding bikes, they see a rabbit, they'll chase it, they'll kill it, they'll eat the whole thing. Because I know that's their nature. I've known that's their nature. They eat the fur, they eat the intestines, the organs, the teeth, the bones. They gobble it up and swallow it, and they love it, right? And it's actually really good for them. That raw meat, that bone, the fur, all that stuff is really good for them. So, we dive deep into what does an ideal diet look like, and how the kind of, even we call healthy kibble, the healthy dry food that we're giving our dogs, that I thought was healthy, right? I thought it was, it's organic, or it's non-GMO. It doesn't have fillers and pesticides. It's got, all this healthy stuff. It's actually poison for them. I mean, that's what it is. The dry dog food we're giving our dogs and cats is literally poison. And there's no wonder that our animals now have astronomical rates of cancer and autoimmune disease and all kinds of chronic health issues that they've never had before, just like humans, right? So the diet is a huge piece of it. Understanding they need a whole food diet. They need a high animal protein diet. They don't really need lots of fruits and vegetables and things like that, but they do need good, solid nutrition. They do need vitamins and minerals. I thought this one fact was really interesting, right? So if a dog's out in the wild and they catch their prey and they're going to eat it and they eat the whole thing, where do they actually get their vegetables from? They get it from the stomach of the animal. So they eat the stomach, and inside it, they get all of the nutrients they need that comes from the grasses and the vegetables and the berries and the things that those animals are eating, fermented, broken down by the enzymes of that herbivore. So it's perfectly digestible and assimilated for the dog, right? So we're not giving our animals, I don't think most people tuning in are giving our dogs or cats, I don't think we just kill a rabbit and just give it to them like that. I mean, if we are, they're probably really healthy, but I don't think we are. So what can we do to supplement, right? So what can we do to give them the diet they really need, but also give them some supplementation that can make sure they're getting their amino acids and their vitamins and nutrients and minerals and things like that.
That's deep. I like it. I like it a lot. That was really good. We had a documentary series, or docu-series, I should say, season 2 on the Sacred Plant, which is all about, there's a lot about horses, and there's a dog and a cat. And so the cannabis CBD piece is a big piece, and the diet's probably the bigger piece, right, as well. I'm called to ask this question. So ketogenic diet is controversial as it is, but it's also trending high right now. Its relationship with cancer. There's people who are divided, right? There's people who say no way, no way. And there's people saying it's the best thing ever for cancer. So just so I know, you and I have had conversations privately about this. Where are you at? Again, you got to keep it concise. We got to wrap up this interview, but where you stand on that? I know we have you have a whole episode on anti-cancer diet that talks about this, but where are you at about it for the listeners here?
Yeah, I mean, I look to the top minds in the field, the ones who are working hands-on with thousands of patients. So I look to them for their advice, and then I look at the research to back it up, right? And then I talk to people who've overcome cancer and ask them what they did. So, where I'm at with it, and where people can learn more about it throughout the series is, one, there are some forms of ketogenic that actually can be beneficial for cancer patients, right? Especially something like a modified plant-based ketogenic diet for short-term period. We have seen some great success with this, right? So basically they're doing a plant-based ketogenic, it's higher fat, but you're still getting your nutrients that you need, your phytonutrients, your vitamins, your minerals, your fiber, all these things that you're getting from the plants, from the berries, from the beans, from the healthy carbohydrates, right? You're still getting that, but you're reducing the sugar. Where cancer patients see the benefit on going on a ketogenic diet for a short term, they see it because they cut out all the sugar. They cut out the high carbs, the high carbohydrates from processed foods like pastas and cereals and things like that, right? And they tend to eat more whole foods anyway. So anybody doing that, even if you're on a high fat diet, is going to see some short-term benefits. Where the danger can come on a ketogenic diet, especially an animal-based ketogenic diet, which is what a lot of people promote, right? Do lots of bacon and do lots of, hamburger and do lots of pro-inflammatory things, when we know cancer thrives in a chronic inflammatory condition, and then we're adding more inflammation by proven known animal products at high levels to exacerbate that inflammation. We're going to have problems long term, right? So I guess, it's a big conversation. It's worth diving deep into. There are some people. I interviewed somebody today, actually, and I asked her. She said, "Oh yeah, I'm on the ketogenic diet." And she reversed cancer. She reversed her cancer. And she said, I said, okay, let's dig deeper in that. What does your diet look like? Well, she eats 3 ounces of meat, right? And it's usually turkey or chicken. And I said, well, what's the rest of your plate? Oh, it's vegetables and it's salad. And I said, how often do you eat? She said, I do small meals like that 4 or 5 times a day. I said, okay, so most of your diet is actually not ketogenic diet. So some people think they're on a ketogenic diet and they have success, they reverse their cancer, and they're actually not on a ketogenic diet at all, or they're on a modified or what have you. So there's a lot to dive in there. What I will wrap it up and say, there are some proven benefits. There are some things we really need to be careful of and watch out for. And there are some ways to do it more safely to get some good results in the short term, and even modify it for the long term so that we can have the best chance at, helping our bodies heal.
Awesome. Well, Nathan, I want to thank you first for this interview, right? You're pouring your heart in here and sharing personal stories, but also giving a lot of value. I mean, like hardcore, like value you can take away right now and change your life, right? You've also produced a summit that can have over 30 hours of like deep dive, right? So you spent over a decade researching it, and you're putting it, condensing it. So one of my mentors Tony Robbins calls about turning decades into days, right? Which is incredibly powerful. So tell us how we can get the summit, but you're also, for those people who are impatient like me, where you're actually giving, ebook gifts, right? So you created 3 ebooks and you're giving them with the series as well. So tell us a little bit about the series, how they could sign up. By the way, I did put a link below to make it easy for you guys for the series. But also the ebooks is just an added value for everybody.
Awesome. Yeah. So 9 days. So we're taking these interviews, we've put them into basically 9 episodes, right? So 9 days, you can sign up. If there's a link below, go ahead and click that link to sign up right now. There's the ebooks we're giving you, the anti-cancer diet ebook, the 25 evidence-based cancer strategies and solutions. Some really great ebooks there for you as well to kind of get you started, as well as some bonus free interviews you can watch immediately after you sign up. So you kind of get some good foundation going there before this series airs. And then, 1 episode per day for 9 days where you get to dive deep into all of these interviews. So, I think the best place to sign up is just at the link you put there, Manny. And I do encourage everyone, sign up, join us, help us on this mission to, one, not only help people around the world who are struggling with the fears, with the misinformation, with the challenge, with the stress of a cancer diagnosis, but, help yourself, whether it's you're wanting just to learn more to prevent cancer for yourself, or maybe you have cancer and you're trying to learn more about what you can do to empower yourself to overcome cancer, or help a loved one. Share this with your friends, family, anybody who needs this information, who is looking to just have more hope and possibility. What I will share with you, when you attend the event, when you attend the summit, you will gain more. As you said, Manny, decades into days. You will gain more in 9 days of this event than you would in decades of researching it, because the researching part's the hard part. You got to sift through so much information. Some of it is very misunderstandable. You don't even understand half of it half the time. You got to dig so deep, whereas here it is, boom, it's all in one place in 9 days. So I hope you'll join us. I hope you'll bring your friends, family, anybody that can benefit from this. And I hope to see you a part of it. So click that link and sign up, and we'll see you a part of the summit.
Nathan, on behalf of everyone, I just want to say thank you. If it wasn't clear for everyone, it's free. It's free to watch while the airing is going on. Again, it starts on May 18th is day 1. And you've done this before. This isn't your first summit or first docuseries. You know how it works. We encourage you to ask you to support the mission, help us save lives. But regardless of that, just get the information. Share it with your loved one. That's even most important, is get the information to your loved ones and spread it, and spread that information. So Nathan, again, thank you for taking decades of information and condensing it into 9 days. So I appreciate your time today and your time to put this together. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. My honor, brother. Thanks for having me here, and appreciate you, man.
Awesome. For everyone listening, I hope this interview was impactful for you and informative, and I hope to see you at the summit, because I'll be watching. Thank you.